friends, it's Miss Betsy. I am so glad to see you this week. Actually, I wish I could be with each one of you and talk to you and ask you questions like, hey, how you doing? How's it been? What is the best thing you've done during COVID? What's been the hardest part during COVID? Have you learned a new skill during COVID? Have you read a new book? Do you have a new favorite character? These are all the things that we could talk about when we get back together. But in the meantime, today our lesson's going to be about the Last Supper. Miss Mary Lou is going to come in and she's going to tell you all about it. And it's a fascinating story. In fact, many pieces of artwork have been done about it. There's been lots to talk about it. And you're going to get to know the story firsthand through the puppets of Miss Mary Lou. But in the meantime, what I'd like to talk to you today about is usually during Lent, I send you guys boxes. And they kind of look like this. Does anybody remember these? Yeah. And they have little coloring things to do on the outside. And some of you still may have your boxes. And if you have your boxes, I would love for you to bring them to me driving communion on Easter Sunday. And I will collect them and I will send them in to the Lutheran Fund for World Relief. Now, I wanted to tell you a little bit about it, though. During Lent is a time that we maybe think of others and we care about others, and we do a little bit more for others than we would normally do. And it's a way to kind of give back a change and help people understand the change in our heart that Jesus has given us. All the love he's given us in our hearts, we give back to people. And one of the things that we can do to give back to people is help people who are in need. Now, you know, I've talked about this a lot. Like for people who have gotten too much water, people who don't have enough water, people who've been through storms and have needed blankets, and for our friends who need more food. Now, part of being a Lutheran is that this church, there is a Lutheran church all over the world. And you can find a Lutheran church in Africa, you can find a Lutheran church in South America, you can find a Lutheran church wherever you go. And it's this community. Miss Betsy is having a hard time with her light. What do you think? This is what keeps falling down. Okay, I'm going to try to put it up there, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to turn it off. Okay, so the Global Barnyard is a way for us to put money in and for us to send it to places that they can buy sustainable food. Let me try to say that again. Sustainable food. Food that doesn't go away after they eat it just one time. Food that can continue giving. Like a cow can continue to give milk. A chicken can continue to give eggs. A pig continue to have babies and make more pigs. And and pigs will often root and help vegetation grow. So there's a lot of really wonderful things. And you can buy something for as little as $10. That's 10 chicks. Or your family can maybe contribute something a little bit larger. There's a cow, a pig, a fish farm, honeybees, and a goat. And no matter how much you have, if you put it in this box or you just bring it in a plastic bag, Miss Betsy will put it all together and I'll send the check in and we'll buy chickens and cows and pigs and all kinds of things for children who need food around the world. All right. I will put the link to the God's Barnyard if you just wanted to go right to this website and make a contribution there. I'll put that in our Sunday school newsletter every week. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Good morning, friends. We're so happy to have you here today. We have a great story to share, but before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about hand washing. When do you have to wash your hands?
When I come from outside playing or when I'm out in the store with my mom.
Okay, and how about you? When do you wash your hands?
Before I eat.
Okay, before you eat. So that's always good. And, you know, in Jesus' day, they didn't really wash their hands that much, but do you know what they did do? This is going to sound silly to you. They washed their feet. When they would go inside from being outside, they'd wash their feet. And do you know why?
It was very sandy.
Yes,
Right?
they did not have things like roads like we have and sidewalks to walk on.
And they wore sandals all the
Yeah,
time.
they wore sandals. They didn't have great shoes like we have, and they didn't drive around in cars so they could avoid the muddy puddles and things like that. So they had really dirty feet. Okay, so usually when they got home and they went inside, you know what happened? A servant was there, and he would come and he would wash their feet. Do you think that Jesus is a servant?
No, Jesus is not a servant.
But guess what? He's going to wash their feet before they have a meal together. Because our story today is about Jesus sharing a meal with friends. Do you ever have friends over for dinner?
I love to have friends for dinner, and I make a lot of good things too.
Like what? What do you
Well,
serve them?
I like macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
I do.
That's good. What do you serve your friends?
We order pizza. I love pizza.
Okay, well, Jesus and his friends were gathering to celebrate something, a holiday. It was called Passover. And Passover is something that Jewish people celebrate even today. And what it is it's kind of a celebration of when they were back in Egypt. We learned about that a long time ago in our lessons. And they were getting ready to leave Egypt, and the Egyptian people had been very mean to them. And so God kind of made a plan with them, and he said, if you put blood on the door of your house, when I pass over, I will not harm anybody that's in this house. Okay, so before they were getting ready to leave Egypt, they all put blood on their doorstep and the door lintel, and when God came and he passed over their houses. Okay, and so he did no harm to them. So they remember that, and they still celebrate it today. But when Jesus gathered his friends together for the Last Supper, because he knew he wasn't going to be here on the earth very much longer, do you know what he served them?
Bread?
Yeah,
I
he served them bread, and in the cup he had wine. Now, that's a very simple dinner, isn't it? Why would he serve them bread and wine?
Communion?
Well, this was the first communion. If you remember communion, you've been up to the table at our church before, and you've gathered round and you've received the bread and you've had wine or grape juice from the cup. You know that what we're celebrating is a remembrance of the Last Supper, that very first time that they had communion. And Jesus chose bread and wine because those were the simplest things that he could have. And everybody could participate. Everybody had bread and everybody had wine in their house. So it wasn't anything fancy like a big steak that only rich people could afford. It was something very simple. And so when we do that to this day, we also do the same thing with bread and wine. Let's say a prayer together. And because this is about washing feet, we're going to waggle our feet when I say the words love or feet. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Dearest friend Jesus, your love surprised the disciples when you washed their feet. And your love surprises us too. Help us to learn to be like you and to love our friends by serving them. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, so if you have your Sparks Bibles at home, we're going to read the Last Supper and we're going to act it out. It's on page 462. Okay, there are 3 parts to this story, and the first part is the foot washing. So I have a bowl here and a towel, and we're going to wash feet. Jesus is going to wash your feet. And the second part of the story is the Passover meal, and that is the Last Supper, and we have bread and we have wine in the glass. And the third part of the story is the walk to the Mount of Olives. Okay, so we need somebody to play Peter.
Oh, I'm Peter.
Okay, we've got Peter over here, and somebody to be Judas.
I'm Judas.
Okay, and somebody to be Jesus. And I'm going to do the parts of Jesus. At home, you can pick whatever part you want, or you can just play all of the parts if you want to. All right, so we're going to read the Last Supper. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world, and he wanted to share his last Passover meal together with his 12 closest friends, the disciples. Jesus loved his friends, and he wanted to show them his love in a very caring way. He really loved his friends. As the friends got ready for the meal, Jesus put water in a large bowl, and he knelt down on the floor, and his disciples were sitting, and he wanted to wash the feet of each disciple. Okay.
Jesus, you will never wash my feet.
Peter, you don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later. Peter loved Jesus so much that he said,
Then don't just wash my feet, but my head and my hands also.
Peter wanted to be just as close to Jesus as possible. As they were eating, Jesus sadly told his disciples, "Soon one of you will betray me. One of you will tell people who don't like me where I am, so they can take me away." This upset the disciples, and each one of them said,
It's not me you're talking about, is it, Jesus?
When Judas said this, Jesus gently replied, "Yes, Judas, you will betray me." Then Jesus picked up a loaf of bread, and he blessed it, and he gave some to each of his friends, saying, "Take this bread and eat it. This is my body." And then Jesus picked up the cup of wine, and he gave thanks and said, "Drink this. It is my blood, which I must give up for the sins of people, so they can be forgiven." When the meal was over, Jesus and his friends walked to a place called the Mount of Olives. And when they got there, Jesus said sadly, "Soon you will all leave me." And Peter felt bad.
Even if the others leave you, I won't.
Jesus looked at his dear friend, shook his head, and said quietly, "Before the sun rises, you will pretend you don't know me 3 times. And Peter said,
Jesus, I love you too much to ever do that to you.
and all the other disciples said the same thing. And that's the end of our story for today. Jesus, in this story, showed his disciples how to love one another, not just with words. I mean, you could tell somebody, "I love you," but then if you turn around and you do something that you're not supposed to be doing, or if they need your help and you don't help them, are you really showing them that you love them? What could you do for your mom at home to show her that you love her?
I could help with chores.
Yeah, like what kind of chores can you do?
I can set the table,
Yeah.
and I can pick up the dishes after we eat and take them to the
Okay.
sink.
Okay. How could you help your
I
dad?
can play with my little brother while she makes dinner.
Okay. And how can you help Dad?
Well, I can help him mow the lawn.
Oh boy, that's a big job.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're big enough for that?
One day.
Yeah, someday you can do that. What about a friend at school? How could you help them?
If they're having trouble with their homework, I could show them the way that I do it that makes it easy for me.
That would be really helpful.
And if I see someone that doesn't have a friend, I'll just be that friend.
Yeah, especially at recess. If you see somebody that looks lonely, you could just be friends with them, right? Okay, so this week, while you're at home, I want you to think of some ways that you can show the people in your life that you love how much you love them. Okay? We're going to play a little game. I know you know Simon Says, and this is called Peter Says. And Peter, remember, he said to Jesus, don't just wash my feet, wash my head, wash my hands, wash everything. So in our game that we're playing today, Peter's going to tell you to wash parts of your body, but you only do it if Peter says, because I'm going to try to trick you by saying, wash your hands. And I don't say, Peter says. Okay, you ready? Okay,
Let's go.
Peter says, now you're going to pretend you're washing by, rubbing your hands together or something like that. Okay, Peter says, wash your head. Boo. Peter says, wash your feet. Peter says, wash your chin. Wash your nose. Uh-oh, if you're washing your nose, Peter didn't say to do it. Let's do a couple more. Peter says, wash your knees. Peter says, wash your eyeballs. That's a hard one. Wash your tongue. Oh, if you're touching your tongue, Peter didn't say to do that. You guys are good listeners. Okay, let's close today. And I want you to repeat after me by saying exactly what I say, but I want you to draw a heart in the air when you're saying it, okay? Because we're going to remember to love with our hearts. Friend Jesus, thank you for loving us. Say thank you for loving us.
Thank you for loving us.
And draw your heart. Help us to love others by serving them.
Help us
Thank
to
us to
love
love
others by serving them.
We love you, Jesus.
We love you, Jesus.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, that's our lesson for today, guys.
Bye,
See you-
everybody.
We'll see you later.